Start sharing my screen here. Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is John Webster. I'm with the US Biochar Initiative. I started volunteering with the USBI about a little over 3 years ago, and then I've been working with them for two as a contractor doing communications work. So what we're going to talk about today is the state of the biochar industry. And if I can get the next slide, there we go. So real quick about USBI, we're a nonprofit that's dedicated to promoting the sustainable production and utilization of biochar. We do this through encouraging new market development, producers to come online. We do thorough research, we work on policy, technology, and we do a lot of practical application work. Our key areas of focus are market development. We have the yearly conference that was talked about. We do BCR, which is biochar carbon removal. We do BCR and CDR advocacy, outreach and education, and much more. Some of the things that we do are workshops, demonstrations, conferences, and technical documents. Here's an example set of some of our guidelines that we have available. So a lot of folks have questions, how do you put biochar into the soils? We have guidelines on that. We have it in English and Spanish. We have documents on manure management, crop yields, and understanding labs, and much more. I do want to point out that we have another conference coming up in September 15th through the 18th of 2025. It's going to be in Minneapolis, and I hope some of you can join us. And the reason I bring that conference up is because there has never been a better time to get involved with the biochar industry. Frankly, right now, the energy, the optimism, it's palpable. There's money coming in, there are green jobs to be had, there's soil to heal, there's heavy industry to decarbonize. We can do this. It's safe, scalable, and shovel ready. So real quick, if you're thinking about biochar as a field of enterprise, then there's lots of room, and we're happy to have you. Just so you know, all the documents that we will discuss today are going to be available to you on the USBI website. So I have QR codes throughout this presentation. A copy of them will be sent to you after the meeting ends, but you can go right to our website and find out what's going on with USBI. So we're talking about the state of the industry, and that comes down to data-driven directives. So in 2023, USBI, along with our partners at the International Biochar Initiative, conducted a survey of global biochar professionals. This included producers, practitioners, distributors, suppliers, folks that are doing blending. And so what we found out is that the respondents across this market had clear directives on the key growth drivers that they saw for the existing markets, which included things like the growing awareness of biochar, the carbon credits market, and the increased demand for use in agriculture. So again, that's a QR code that will take you to where you can download the market report, and we'll have links to that afterwards. So in terms of developing markets, the producer insights identified that biochar enhanced fertilizers and then is a premier path, and then effectively we have a three-way tie for biochar's bulk soil amendment and environmental remediation material, and for its use in composting. We said, okay, as part of the survey, we wanted to understand, what did you feel our role is in this environment? And they came back and they basically said, the largest thing that we want to see is we want to have you help create and develop markets for the physical biochar. That is what is most needed right now. And then after that, it's kind of a tie for things like the standards and specifications, advocacy, policy, and lobbying. And then they also wanted to see things like the development of pilot projects and demonstrations, and then helping them get into the weeds with things like, how do we get financing? What are our opportunities for grants and funding? What's it look like when we're trying to do capital access in order to build our facilities or launch our biochar-based products? So, and to meet that need, USBI has a number of current efforts that are underway. Inside of our outreach and education, we have the development of the fact sheets that you saw. We have the Biochar Atlas webinars that we're working on. In fact, there's one tomorrow for anybody that's interested. You can look at our LinkedIn page. American Farmland Trust and USBI are and the Biochar Atlas team are putting on a webinar tomorrow. We're doing education on programs like the NRCS Code 336 Soil Amendment Program. We have the Biochar in the Woods or Biochar on Site program that deals with forestry and ecology and the use of biochar, and our media interviews and webinars like this. Beyond that, we have things like our workshops and our conferences. We have the annual conference that we do. We have a whole archive of the presentations from this February event that are available on our website, and there are links to that. And then we also attend conferences across a wide range of industry sectors to promote the messaging behind biochar and the opportunities that this frankly very universal material can assist with. And we do field day events and air quality testing and a number of other things. We also do market development and research. So the survey will be conducted again, the Global Market Survey. We have another project that we work on with some of our partners. We have one that we're doing in the Chesapeake Bay called the Scaling Up Biochar Project, which is focused on stormwater and restoration of the estuaries around the Chesapeake Bay. Biochar Atlas, and then also working to decarbonize those heavy industry sectors. So more in line with what the survey identified, we've been working towards standards development. So we're working with ASABE and ANSI to address kind of the certification gap because it's historically been European centric. We're bringing things in line so that the domestic labs in the United States have a clear pathway for testing and with methodologies that aren't too much of a reach for them. This will help biochar producers because right now, when we make something, sometimes you can have 2 to 3 months before you can get back your results. Some of the benefits of having these standards is that we can depend upon consistent results and high product quality. Inside the policy and support, we're consistently informing and educating different civic groups and lawmakers and industry segments. We provide support for state agencies, state and federal and local agencies on a number of initiatives. Some of the teams that we work with are the NCAT and the USBC teams for USBI does not lobby, but we work with groups that do. So what they're doing is they provide our information. So when they have a need for something, we can help develop the materials and in order to help bring these materials to market. Applied research is a big area. So with the biochar enhanced fertilizers coming online, we have funding projects that are supporting these endeavors, and we are making quick success with these. We also do things like help bring items to market, such as the air burners Char Boss, for example, and extensive testing and LCA endeavors. So those are some of the things. Who is our target audience? Well, we go after resource managers, different industries, especially throughout the biomass industry. We discuss things with the biochar producers, distributors, and manufacturers. We work with research at all the levels. Real interesting, there's a new glossary that came out that's helping to unify the industry in terminology. So we're very excited about that coming out. We work heavily with forestry and agriculture groups. The carbon markets, of course, we know are driving a lot of the adoption. The financial sector loves buying the carbon credits, and that's been really helpful. So how's it going? What's our current state? Well, the U.S. production volume, we're looking at about 150,000 metric tons produced in 2023. So that's definitely stepping up from what it has been in the past. The sectors of service include agriculture, waste management, and industrial uses, as well as a number of folks that are looking at innovative ways to include biochar and other materials simply for the carbon element. So, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. And the carbon markets are really doing well for us. The demand for durable credits is high. And the valuation will vary. It can be anywhere from $100 to $200 per ton. In fact, I think I looked up yesterday and it was about $164 a ton as the average price. The revenue from the credits, they support net zero goals. A lot of times the biochar producers are actually taking the value of the carbon credits and they're deducting those values from the price of their physical material in order to build the material markets. So it's been a real motivator for new entrants into the production market, the fact that you have a pathway to revenue. There's a lot of potential for growth. So again, the carbon credits, we see folks like Microsoft coming into the market with their big announcements and some other organizations. And again, it's not often that the producers generate much income from the credits. It's usually a pathway to revenue for the other processes like waste reduction, power generation, thermal heat capture, different opportunities like that. In terms of investments, because groups like Microsoft are starting to put the money into the carbon credits market with the pre-purchases, we find that a lot more banks are willing to finance the building of biochar facilities. And it's also brought an onslaught of venture capital into the space and project finance groups. So all these carbon credits are pretty fantastic, but you know what? They're backed by a physical biochar. So we literally have some producers that are stuck. They need to sell the biochar before they can make more credits. So that's the number one guidance for the generation of market development. So, and biochars are showing up to market in many forms that are suitable for an increasing range of end use applications in different materials. We've got raw biochar, as you can see in the graphic, pelletized granular biochar or prilled. That's similar to what you see when you're applying the fertilizer to your lawns, and in liquid form. In addition to these, we have producers that are specializing in really unique feedstocks. And we have more and more research that's going on in terms of the physical and chemical characteristics of what the different feedstocks allow and the benefits that we can find in using those biochars as created. So a lot of innovation going into this space right now. So how do you get your feedstocks for the biochar market? One of the things that you typically want to do as you enter into the space is secure those feedstock contracts. The range of feedstocks range. So we have forestry and wood waste, we have food waste, we have construction and demolition waste, sludge, so sewage sludge is being converted into biochar. And then we also have manures and crop residues. So, and general green waste as well. So stuff that you might typically see going to the landfill into the green waste sector can be utilized as a feedstock. And suitability for purpose on the intended use of that biochar is always important to take into account. So one of the fastest pathways that we see to adoption is in agricultural applications. And this is where the organics recycling and the biochar industries have a strong and growing relationship, because by incorporating biochar into composting processes, these industries effectively pair up to close the loop. So you have a high carbon rich material, you've got a high organic source material with lots of biology in it. You bring them together, you've got the durable carbon that prevents the loss of the nutrients, reduces odors. So in some cases, these compost facilities are able to produce more compost because their limitation was the amount of odors that were going out into the adjoining communities. But then they have this carbon rich product that they can sell at a net positive increased rate to the local market. It also can qualify for selling it into some of the federal programs that we'll talk about in a bit. Some of the benefits are that it increases the rate to maturation, and it also makes it so you don't have to turn the piles as often. It really is turning into a win-win. And we see some of these mid-tech systems coming into play. On here on the left-hand side is something called the Char Boss that's been developed in the last couple of years. This is in the organics recycling business, you often get these things called overs. These are the big chunks of wood or similar organic materials that can be difficult to process. So relying on a way to do a thermal conversion of them into a fixed carbon material that can benefit your compost, also reducing the total size and weight of it, has some real value. So we're finding that this is kind of the entry step, right? You got to start somewhere in the biochar world, and so for a lot of these organics recyclers, this is a fast path to adoption. They can do their own testing. The cost is reasonable, and now they can start making a biochar amended compost that they can sell into the markets. So here's some examples of what biochar looks like in the soil. Look, those are pretty pictures. I love working with the biochar. I love it in my garden. I love it when I'm working with market farmers and ranchers. Because some of the things that we see are that we have increased in the above ground and below ground biomass. We see in the enhancements of the microbial and bacterial communities, especially the beneficials, those fungal communities. I mean, you can see the fungal elements there on those soils. It's really fantastic. The nooks and crannies here on that biochar, the SEM image, you can see those nooks and crannies. Those are literally high-rise condos for all the beneficial microbes and bacteria. So they love it. So the biochar markets, what is biochar? I mean, that's a real common question. People still haven't heard about it a whole lot. So that means we need programs and tools that can help promote it. Some of the benefits that we're seeing right now is that we've got government programs that are driving the market. So we have things like the Farm Bill. We have the USDA NRCS Code 336, which is part of the conservation stewardship, the conservation practice standards program. We have the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Act, the Biochar Bill. We've got the bioenergy folks with BECS that are coming in. Something that a lot of folks don't realize is when they say BECS, that CCS is biochar. So, and we also have the US Forest Service Wood Innovation Grants and similar programs, which are helping with a pathway to funding. All right, so this is the big one right now. This is called Code 336. It supports biochar as a soil carbon amendment. The federal government is increasingly committed to building the carbon stores in our soils. This is what's going to allow us to reduce some of the need for inputs, for the external inputs. We can grow more with less, as long as we're properly addressing the resource concerns. The program's only been around for a few years. It initially started out as Code 338, which was an interim practice. Now it's been a fully adopted program called Code 336, and it changes the value proposition of biochar from yield to conservation. So again, building those carbon stores. We've been drawing on them for a long time. It's real difficult to build that soil structure. It's real difficult to build this soil carbon, and biochar is a quick pathway to doing so. So in order to help you with that, USBI has put together a number of documents to support learning opportunities and implementation practices. Some of those include information that's available on our website at that URL, as well as our YouTube channel, where you can find a complete series on Code 336, how it works, what it does, and the benefits. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. Here's an adoption map showing the states that currently have adopted Code 336. So as we can see, it's getting pretty strong national adoption. There is a brand new map that came out this past week. I still don't have a copy of it, but we did see some increases in adoption. So that's good news. I always include this photo from Josiah Hunt, the Pacific Biochar, with the big stack of biochar next to the vineyards. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. So in addition to these federal programs and the resources on the education, we're creating tool sets, because it's important to understand how to apply it. So it's one thing to adopt the concept, and then next up, we need to be able to put it into practice. And these online resources are intended to remove the barriers for adoption. So We have the 3 R's of biochar: right place, right source, right rate. So we need to know where to get it, where to put it, and how much, right? And then when. So, and the one thing I want to point out is there's no such thing as the perfect biochar. There is only the perfect biochar for the application. And biochar is an investment, not a cost. So effectively what that means is we have opportunities that we can build the soil carbon utilizing biochar. We install biochar up to a certain amount, and then after that, we may not need to add biochar again for years or potentially even generations because of its durability in soil. Again, it's all about understanding your resource concern. And in that tool set, understanding your resource concern means we have decision support tools like the Web Soil Survey. This is a program by the USDA. It has an online repository, in some cases, generations and decades of soil health measurements and soil property measurements throughout the entire United States. So you can go in, put your address in, and look up your soil conditions. And this is what we're talking about inside the 3 R's when we're talking about the right place. We need to understand our place so we can make the proper decisions. So, the questions are, with the Biochar Atlas program, it's currently under the PNW biochar.org, which stands for the Pacific Northwest. It's being converted from a regional to a national database, but it's intended to help us match biochar properties with the soil types and the crop needs. This is all tied in. This also ties in and supports strongly the Code 336 program. So when we're using the tool, it's pretty simple. It's based on a spreadsheet that was originally developed by Josiah Hunt. He's with Pacific Biochar, and he is also a long-term board member with the USBI. And then Kristen Tripp, also a board member and a USDA ARS soil scientist who heads up the Biochar Atlas program. Her and her team have continued to work to really bring it to maturity and bring it to market with the first version that is publicly available. Everybody can start using this. So it allows us to do things like put in the values of our that we can find from our lab tests on the biochar and the lab tests we find on the compost. And then we can put them together, and then it can help us make a sane calculation on how much we can reasonably apply. So again, barrier to entry has often been not even, general awareness of biochar. And then beyond that is, how do I even use it? Growers want to know, how do I use it? How do I apply it? How do I use it in my soils? How do I use it in my potting media? How do I, what's it going to do to germination? All these types of things. We're working to get that information to you on a regular basis. Here's an example of one of the trials that was done with it, where biochar did a fantastic increase in the yield, and you can see the difference in the areas with and without biochar. It's pretty stunning. I do want to point out that biochar is not a magic bullet. It can certainly feel like it, right? I've literally had growers that tell me that it felt like magic for them because it just worked so well. But again, it's all about understanding the science behind it and the resource concerns that we're trying to address. What's the suitability for use? What's our end goal? Is it cropping? Is it things like biochar and landscape? So beyond the agricultural application, we have the ability to benefit the local environments in the rural and urban communities. So we can do it. We can do things like storing carbon in parks. We can use it in green roofs, where it's a very lightweight aggregate that holds on to water very well and helps with the growth metrics on the plants that are on top. Tree planting, wow, it is amazing in use with trees. We can use it on turf management and in municipal soils. I do want to point out that studies vary, but we commonly find that in turf management, you can save a significant amount of water, commonly at least 30%, just by implementing a reasonable amount of biochar. That is massive, because if you're not, water's heavy and it takes a lot of fuel to move that water around. So if we can use less of it, prevention is always the best step. Biochar and stormwater. This is also a very big growing sector. Our new executive director, Miles Gray, comes from a stormwater background. These are some of his photos for projects that he's worked on. This is a way to use a nature-based filtration material as a way to manage things like nutrient runoff and pollutant capture. Biochar makes an excellent filtration media. And so you can see that it has adoption capacity at the urban level to meet our the needs of our modern life. Moving on beyond that, we have the new market opportunities for things in the built environment. And this one is pretty exciting. And actually, several of these are very exciting that we're going to show you. Biochar and asphalt. Making it lightweight, doing things to make it so it's self-healing. It's a way that you can deal, let's say you have a contaminated feedstock. Well, you can convert it safely into biochar to stabilize that carbon. And then while that biochar was likely never going to be suitable for use in agriculture, it's perfectly acceptable as an aggregate in a substrate like asphalt. So very exciting, the potential to have literally gigatons of carbon stored into our path and pads and roads. These things are also super cool. Biochar in drywall, biochar in the ceiling tiles, biochar in cement, in regular floor and wall tiles, biochar in plastics, biochar in 3D printer filament. So it's being used in things like cosmetics as deodorizer. Like we have an endless number of options. It's all about understanding the properties and distilling it down to what we need to use it for. So how is it made? I wanted to give you some examples of the more industrial side of this. So we have systems here from Pyreg, we have Artichar, we have the Earth Care machine, and then we also have Oregon Biochar Solutions and their bioenergy plant that has biochar as output. So you can see we have options from large installations to something that's containerized, similar to Arti. In fact, one of the things that I want to point out is this is the system from Artichar that was installed at a location in Arizona called Arizona Log. They do a post and pull process. They salvage ponderosa pines and they use those for utility poles, a much needed resource for modern life. Well, they had excess biomass that they needed to deal with. And in Arizona, these things don't compost very well. So what they ended up doing is they are reducing their use of fossil fuels by using the waste biomass to generate heat for the drying process on their product. So this is a big deal because now that means that we can use biochar to reduce emissions in supply chains. So as corporates adopt their policies and their objectives for 2030 and 2050, more and more will they be demanding upstream with their vendors. We need to understand what your LCA is. This also ended up given the company's called Southwest Biochar. So they have process heat and biochar, and the reduction of several $100,000 a year in propane and fossil fuels. So it's a win-win-win. They now have a lead because when they're trying to sell to new markets, they can say, we deliver a low LCA on your carbon objectives. So again, biochar creating green jobs, reducing fossil fuel consumption, increasing opportunities. So this is an example of a more industrial sized application. You can see it's on a farm. This is a group called Earth Care. They're an organics recycling facility. They're based in Pennsylvania. This is biochar at scale. They process things like animal manures, poultry litter, sawdust, and similar. They're even capturing some of the moisture that comes off of because they're feeding the thermal heat into their drying facility. They're capturing some of the condensate, the fluid condensate, the water, and then they're using that water for quenching. So they're thinking, as we get into this, we're using it more and more for beneficials. And I'm getting pretty close to the end here. PFAS. Everybody understands PFAS and forever chemicals, and we hear more and more about this and the damage that it's causing. Convenience has a price, and now we have to find ways to deal with it. And biochar is turning into an excellent option for it because the temperature that biochar is made at destroys effectively about 95% or more of the PFAS contained in the original material. So on this slide, you can see a truck dumping out sewage sludge. So we can process that sewage sludge. The systems can effectively capture the energy, the embodied energy that's in the sludge to run an autothermic process to create the biochar, to eliminate those PFAS. And then here's the cool thing. Like you can then take that biochar, you can put it upline, and that biochar has been tested and shown to be extremely effective as a sorbent to capture more of the PFAS and PFAS elements upline. And then you can put it's a reusable filter. You can literally put it back through the same system that made it because it was at the same temperature, burn off the PFAS and use that clean filtered biochar over again. It is really amazing. So for any of you that are looking at getting into the industry, once you do, please get a directory listing on our website. We have a number of categories that are all available to you. Looking forward, biochar's future is growing in the US. We have expanding carbon markets, we have expanding ag markets, we have expanding PFAS remediation markets, and the industrial uses, insulation, cement, more. The emerging sectors are construction and filtration, potting media, things like that. And then policy influence. We're getting more and more in front of lawmakers because resilience is very important, and biochar helps deliver that in spades. Again, it's an issue of understanding your needs and your resources that you have on hand. I'm going to show this slide, and then I'm going to show a couple more real quick, and then I'll come right back to this. But again, I've got QR codes here. I want to encourage everybody to connect with me on LinkedIn, so that way as you're progressing in the industry, if you have any questions, we can give you a hand, we can make introductions and help you out. USBI has a lot of documentation available. Again, you can find all our presentations here. And again, there has never been a better time to join the industry. Soil science, carbon metrics, like make cool things. It's carbon. It is very simple, but it's elegant in the solutions that it offers us. And while you're researching your entry into the market, plan on joining us in Minnesota if you can. So yeah, thank you. I hope I got through that fast enough. And again, this will be online. So if you have any questions about it, it's all available to you.